In this video, we will study how Mathematica treats variables and functions and uses colors to help you understand when you're typing things incorrectly versus incorrectly. In Mathematica, it's easy to define a variable. If, for example, we want the variable a to stand for the number 16, we can easily do that. By typing a equals 16 and pressing enter, what we find is that Mathematica returns the value of 16. And now forever after, if we type in an expression involving a, for example, 2a plus 1, Mathematica will know that a stands for the value of 16, and will compute the value of 2a plus 1 accordingly. If we type 2b plus 1, we haven't defined what b should be, and since b isn't a built-in command, Mathematica doesn't know what that is, and so if we try to evaluate that, Mathematica will simply return the same thing that we typed in. Notice the color scheme here, though. The letter A is colored in black, but the letter B here is colored in blue. That's Mathematica's way of telling us that it knows what A is, but it doesn't know what B is. So in general, when you're typing things in input mode in Mathematica, things that are colored black are things that Mathematica recognizes, whereas things that are colored blue are things that Mathematica doesn't recognize. For example, one of the commands in Mathematica that we can use to solve equations is simply called solve. But watch what happens as I start typing the word solve. With my capital S, Mathematica doesn't know what that is, so it's colored blue. O-L-V, still blue, blue, blue. But as soon as I type the E, Mathematica suddenly knows what it is that I'm typing and colors the word black. If we decide we want to clear a variable and erase the value that has been assigned to it, the command we want to use is clear. So capital C clear of A, and if we hit enter, we don't get any output, but notice that all of the A's that we've typed so far turn blue. Here's something interesting to keep in mind, though. Notice that in this line, we had typed 2a plus 1, and at the time, a was defined to be the number 16, and so the output at the time was 33. However, now a is undefined, so if we go back up to this line and press enter, the output we get now is simply 2a plus 1. Mathematica no longer knows what a is. But this is an important thing to keep in mind. If we change the values of variables, Mathematica does not go back and update the results of previous calculations. Those answers stay the same. So you have to be careful when you're using variables, that if you change the value of a variable later on, if you go back, the outputs that you got do not change to match the updated variable. A type of variable that we often want to define in Mathematica is a function. And defining a function in Mathematica requires a very special syntax. So let's say, for example, that I want to define the function f to be f of x equals x squared. So the way that I type that in Mathematica is to say f brackets x, so far so good, but now I have to type an underscore, close my square brackets, colon equals, and whenever I type all that stuff correctly, notice that the x turns green. So the green color there means that I've typed my function incorrectly. And now when I type in my expression, x squared, the green x in my x squared expression matches the x in my input. And when I press enter here, again I get no output, but notice that the f turned from blue to black. And now forever after, if I try to evaluate f, say f of 5, just as if I was plugging into a built-in function, I use square brackets, and f of 5 will return 25. If I want to type in f of a, again remember that a is undefined because we erased it, and so that gives us the result of a squared as we expect. So using functions and variables in Mathematica can be a very powerful tool, and Mathematica uses colors to help us understand when we're doing things correctly. Here's another way that Mathematica uses colors to help us out. Again, let's go back and try to use a solve command. So if I say solve, and I want to solve the equation x squared equals 4. So I can type my x squared. Now, let me pause for a second. Notice that the opening bracket here is colored purple. And purple brackets represent unmatched brackets. So what Mathematica is telling us there is that that purple bracket doesn't have a closing bracket to match it. And so if you're going to have this line produce output that doesn't have an error, you're going to have to type another closed bracket to match the open bracket that we have. And notice that when we type that closed bracket, Mathematica matches it and flashes the opening bracket so that we know which closing bracket matches with which opening bracket. Of course, what we've typed will return an error because it's not an equation to be solved, so let's erase that closing bracket and keep typing. So remember that when we use the solve command, we need a double equal sign. I'm going to solve x squared equals 4. And remember that with Mathematica, we need to tell it which variable we want to solve our equation for. Mathematica supports the idea of solving equations with multiple variables, in which case we have to tell the Mathematica which variable we want it to solve for. In this case, we only have one variable, but we still need to tell Mathematica to solve for x. Notice again that the color of x was blue while we were typing because Mathematica said, well, I don't know what x is, so I'm coloring it blue to indicate that. Now, however, it's colored at sort of a bluish-green color, and that tells us that Mathematica knows that x is supposed to be unknown here because it's an unknown in an equation being solved. So the blue color of I don't know what this is, that Mathematica is telling us that, is changed because Mathematica says, well, yes, I don't know what x is, but that's okay because you're telling me to solve an equation. And if I press enter, I get my result, -2 and +2. So again, Mathematica uses colors to help us understand when things are working correctly and when they're not working correctly. So if you're typing and you're seeing purple brackets or other kinds of colors that are not what you expect, you'll get used to the colors as you go along and use Mathematica. So they really are a powerful tool for understanding when things are going correctly.